So guys, right here is my pattern paper. Here is my tape rule. Here is my hammer curve, my pencil, my scissors, my marker, and my ruler. Now you should have a separate scissors for your paper. It is very important. Don't use the same scissors you're using for your fabric to cut your paper. So another thing is you should also know the biggest part of your body measurement. Okay, the biggest part of your body measurement will determine how much fabric you need to fold and also how much paper you need to cut out to draft your pattern. So right here is my pattern. So I'm going to mark the starting point. It's always important to always mark your starting point line. Okay, so I'm going to mark my starting point line, which is this. After marking your starting point line, I'm going to start marking from the shoulder to my bust line. From my shoulder to my bust line is 9.5, and I'm going to be marking 9.5 here. Shoulder to my waist is 16 inches. So my front waist is 16 inches. So that means when I want to draft my back, my back waist is going to be 15. So right here, I'm going to mark 16 inches here. Now my length is going to be my hip line. So from my shoulder to my hip line is 23 inches. Okay, so I'm going to mark the 23 inches. But if you want to make a fitted top, okay, you can reduce your hip line measurement by 1 inch to get your top length measurement. So I'm just going to use the 23 inches here, but you can use, I use 22 and I use 23, but let me just mark 23 in case I want to reuse this pattern for any other style I want to make. So here is going to be 23. So I'm going to rule all of the marks out now. The next thing I'm going to do is to mark our shoulder to shoulder measurement. The measurement you have from one shoulder to the other. Mine is 14 and I'm going to mark half of 14, which is 7 inches. I'm going to mark it here. I've marked it here. Now you need to determine your chest line. Okay, your chest line is what will help you derive your armhole. Now my chest line, now how do you determine your chest line? You are simply going to divide your bust measurements, okay, your round bust divided by 6. Whatever you have, you are going to add 1.5 inches to it. My round bust divided by 6 gives me 5.5. So 5.5 plus 1.5 will give me 7 inches. So my chest line is going to be 7 inches. So I'm going to mark that 7 inches this way. Another thing to derive it is you can simply use half of your shoulder to shoulder measurements. So half of my shoulder to shoulder measurement is 7. So I can simply use that 7. If your half of your shoulder to shoulder measurement is 8, you can use 8. Okay. But however, you know that our bust measurement is normally different. There are times that someone with bust 44 might have the same shoulder to shoulder measurement with someone with bust 40. Okay. So that is where using your bust measurement comes in place. So just use your bust divided by 6 and then add 1.5 inches to it. So I have 7. So I'm going to mark 7 all the way here. I'm going to mark that 7. Now that shoulder measurement, I will mark it where I have my chest line. I'll also mark it where my chest line is. Okay, so I'm going to mark it here as well. I'm going to connect all of my marks together. So here is my chest line, here is my bust line, here is my waist line, and here is my top length, which is also my hip line. Okay, so here is my shoulder line. This mark here is my shoulder line. The next thing we are going to do is to determine our shoulder slope. So because our shoulder is not straight, okay, you need to remove 1 inch from your shoulder. So I'm going to mark that 1 inch on my shoulder area, and then you are going to mark your neck width. You can use the neck standard of 3 by 3. So I'm going to be marking the neck standard of 3 by 3 here. I'll also mark 3 down here as well. Okay, so after marking it, go ahead and rule your shoulder line here, and then you also mark your neck measurement. So I'm just going to use my curve ruler to mark out my neckline. Okay, so I've marked out my neckline now. So the next thing is to determine you are going to measure what you have from here to here. So whatever you have, you add it, you divide it into 2. I have 3 inches. Now you go in by half an inch. Here is half an inch here. Okay, so I'm going to determine quarter of my bust. So the quarter of my bust is 8. My bust 34 divided by 4 will give me 8.5. So I'm going to mark 8.5 here so that I can use it to connect my armhole curve. So what I will do is to connect from here to here on a straight line. Then just use your armhole curve to curve out your armhole area. So I'm going to use this now to curve out my armhole. Okay, so I'm just going to blend it together. So my armhole is ready. So the next thing is to mark our dart. Now to mark your dart, you simply use your measurement of your nipple to nipple measurement, which is, mine is 7 inches, and half of it is going to give me 3.5. So I'm going to mark half of my nipple to nipple measurement here, and I'll mark it all the way down. So after marking it, you are going to roll it up together like this. Okay, you have from your bust point line, you come down by 1 inch from your bust point line. From your hip line, you come up by 2 inches. Okay, from the hip line, I'll come up by 2 inches. Okay, now from the waistline, you're going to be taking half an inch on both sides of your waistline. Okay, half an inch on both sides. Then you go ahead and mark it out. So you are stopping at this 1 inch I marked here. That is where you are stopping your dart at, and then you stop it at 2 inches I marked here. So guys, this is what you should have. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark our horizontal measurement. Your horizontal measurement means around your body. Okay, so my round bust is 8.5. So 8.5 plus 1 inch sewing allowance, I will have 9.5. So I'm going to mark 9.5 here on the chest line. You are marking your bust measurement on the chest line. Now on the waistline, I'm going to mark quarter of my waist. My waist is 32 divided by 4. I have 8 inches. Now this 1 inch that you are taking away, you're going to add it to the quarter of your waist measurement. So if I add 1 inch to 8, I will have 9 inches. Plus 1 inch side seam allowance, I will have 10. So I'm going to mark 10 here. The quarter of my hip is 10 inches. That is, my hip 40 divided by 4 will give me 10. Plus 1 inch side seam allowance, I will have 11 inches. So I'm going to mark 11 inches here. Okay, our dart did not extend to the hip. Okay, so right now I'll go ahead and connect all of these points together. So once that is done, remember I said the distance from my front waist and my back waist is 1 inch. And I'll come down by 2 inches. From my bust line, I'll come down by 2 inches. So this is 2 inches here. This is 2 inches. So I'm going to connect that mark to this bust point here. So after connecting it here, remember the distance from my front waist and my back waist is 1 inch. So that 1 inch difference, I'm going to be using it here. So that 1 inch, I'm going to share the dart on both sides of this line. So I'll have half an inch here. I'll also have half an inch here. Now on this point, I'll come out by 1 inch because your bust is not going to extend to this place. So just come out by 1 inch. Okay. So you're going to connect your dart from here now. From here to this place. So this is your dart. So this is a 1 inch difference. So by the time I hold these darts together, it's going to match, the side here will match up with the side back. Okay. So on this hip line, we don't want to leave it like this. So I'll go up by 1 inch on my hip line. This is my 1 inch here. Then you go ahead and curve it together. You're going to curve it like so. So when you're cutting this on your fabric, you can add your hemming allowance to your pattern paper. So I'll go ahead now and cut this out. Now on this shoulder line, I'm going to be adding joining allowance of half an inch to my shoulder line. Okay. So right now I'm going to be cutting this off. So when you're cutting on fabric, you add your sewing allowance to the armhole area. You also add your hemming allowance to the lower part here. So I'll go ahead now and cut this out. Now when you are cutting, make sure you close up your dart first. Okay, you want to close it up first before you start cutting. So you realize that after closing it up, you can see that this side becomes shorter than this side. So what you simply do is you are going to reconnect your side. Okay, you are going to reconnect it like so. You're going to reconnect it like this. You can see what I did here now. So that's what you're going to do. So that when you're cutting, you're going to be cutting on the nail line. So go ahead and cut like so. So when you cut, you see what you have. This is what it's going to look like when you cut it. So the next thing I'm going to do now, so on your fabric, you can also add sewing allowance to the neckline as well. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this out. So this is what your pattern will look like. So by the time you join this together, you won't be short of fabric around it. Can you see? So you have to close up this dart when you are cutting on your fabric. You can see how it looks like. So when you close it up and you also hold your dart here, your bust dart will become more pronounced. It will come up like so and it will become more pronounced. You can see how it came up. So right now we are going to cut the back. So I'm going to label this as the front. So this is going to be the front. This is the front. So we are going to proceed to cut the back. So right here, this is the back, okay, and this is our starting point. Now for the back, because the back is going to need a zipper allowance. So what I did was to mark out 1 inch zipper allowance, okay. This part here is 1 inch zipper allowance. You're going to mark it out, which is what I've done. Now from this mark here, you are going to start taking your measurement. So from this line, I'm going to take my shoulder line of 7 inches, okay. This is my shoulder line here of 7 inches. Okay, this is it here. Then you're going to take your chest line, just the same thing we did at the front. You take your chest line, you take your bust point of 9.5. Now for the back waist, I'll be using 15 inches. Remember the front waist is 16, but the back waist is going to be 15 because the front waist is longer than the back waist. So now for the top length, if my top length is 23 at the front, now for the back is going to be 22. Why? Because our waist measurement is different, okay? So I'm just going to mark 22 and then I'm going to roll all of my points together. For the back, we are going to mark out our chest line. You can see what I did here. I mark out my chest line for the back, okay? So let me also label this: my shoulder line, my chest line, my bust line, my waist line, and my hip line, okay? So I mark out the whole of my chest line. So the next thing is our shoulder slope of 1 inch, our neck width of 3 inches. Remember, you are taking your measurement from here. Your horizontal measurement is from here. So I'm going to take the neck width of 3 inches and the neck depth of 1 inch. I'm going to take neck depth of 1 inch. So go ahead and connect all the points together. Okay. And you also connect your neck depth. And then you extend this neckline. You extend it out. You're going to be extending the neckline out, okay? You also go ahead and mark out your shoulder line, just the same thing we did at the back, at the front. We are going to repeat the same process at the back here. Okay, can you guys see now? So the next thing, so another thing you can do is, after you've marked out your back waist, what you can just do to determine your length, the length at the back, is to measure the distance you have from here to here. Okay, is to measure the distance you have from here to here, which mine is 7.25. Just mark the 7.25 here. You can see that I have the same thing, okay? So your length is also, your front length will also be longer than the back length by 1 inch. So the next thing is our bust, our nipple to nipple measurements. Like I said, half of mine is 3.5. Mine is 7, so half of it is going to be 3.5. This is 3.5, and you're going to mark it all the way down. After marking it, remember that for the front, we came down by 1 inch from the bust point. But from here, from the chest line, you will come down here by half an inch on the chest line. I'll come down by half an inch on the chest line. Now on the waistline here, you come up by 1 inch. Remember at the front, we came up by 2 inches, while at the back, you come up by 1 inch. So you're also going to be taking half an inch on both sides of your darts, okay? Half an inch on both sides. Now go ahead and connect everything together. So we are done with the back darts, okay? This is all for the back. So the next thing you want to do is, on the waistline, you will go in by half an inch, okay? On the zipper area, because we want to remove the zipper bulge, I'll go in by half an inch on the waist. And from the hip line, I'll also go up by 1 inch. I'll go up by 1 inch. So go ahead now and connect all these points together. This will help you remove that zipper bulge you always have at the back of your garment. This will help you eliminate it. So I'm just going to cut it like this. Then you also go up like this. And then mark it all the way up like this. So all these parts here, this shaded part, I'm going to be cutting it off. So I'm going to be cutting off these shaded parts, okay? So the next thing is for us to mark our horizontal measurement. So half of my bust point, you are taking the measurement from here, okay? You are taking the measurement from here. So you are going to mark half of my bust is 8.5 plus 1 inch side seam allowance. I have 9.5. So I'm going to mark the 9.5 here. On my waistline, half of my waist, cut of my waistline is 8 inches plus this 1 inch that we are taking off. that makes it 9 inches. Plus 1 inch side sewing allowance, you have 10. Now this half an inch you're taking away here, you need to add it back here. That makes it 10 and a half. So quarter of my hip is 10 plus 1 inch side seam allowance. I have 11 inches. So I'm going to mark the 11 inches here. Then you go ahead now and connect all of your points together. We are going to use the curved part of this ruler. You will use it down here. Okay, so we are almost done. So the next thing is also go up here by 1 inch, just like the same thing we did at the front. Go ahead and curve it out like this. So the next thing is to cut this out. So you also had your stitching allowance to the shoulder. Done, you have something like this. So I'm going to label this the back. So you should have something like this. So when I bring these two up now, you would see that if I bring this up now, you'll see that the front is longer than the back. This is the back, this is the front. You can see that it is longer. Now by the time I take in my bust dart, you can see my bust dart now. By the time I take it in and I place the back to the side front again, you will see that the two will match up at the side. As you can see that the two now match up at the side. Okay, even though the center front is still going to be longer than the center back, okay, but on the side they are going to be equal on the side. So this is what it looks like. Just close it and you have something like this. Okay, you can see what it looks like. So that's that for this basic bodice class. I hope you learned something in this class. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on TikTok, follow me on Facebook and Instagram, where I share interesting tutorials. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.